Expert Testimony. Brian Sullivan, Denise Rivers, Madge Zuma, Thomas Sauer. Project 4, Step 9. Team UK, UMUC, CYB 670. What are the legal challenges associated with cyber incidents involving foreign countries? The legal challenges associated with cyber incidents involving foreign countries are retrieval of customer information and information sharing. Under the UK Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984, data on a device can be searched only if the device was lawfully seized. UK law enforcement and security agencies may, with a warrant, confiscate and intercept the contents of communications in the most serious investigations. Authorized persons may acquire information about the communications, such as who contacted whom and the time of contact, from communications service providers. The ability to acquire the communication evidence is governed by the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act 2000, the Data Retention Investigatory Powers Act 2014, and other legislation. Investigators can also acquire data via equipment interference, such as bugging or hacking a device. Parliament is currently considering the Investigatory Powers Bill. The National Cybersecurity Center was set up in 2016 as part of a wider strategy which sought to make government much more interventionist in the protection of the UK. One of the founding principles of the NCSC was making decisions based on evidence and being as transparent as possible. Although NCSC enables investigators to get access to data that is in the form of evidence, the challenge is accessing data due to the security devices. The data required for forensic analysis are not always readily available to investigators. Generally, data is encrypted or stored in the cloud, making access difficult. Cybercriminals that are experienced use anti-forensics to hide their tracks. The UK regulations include AICPA and SOC 2, audit designed to assure service relevant to security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and/or privacy. NIS regulations implement the EU's Network and Information Security Directive. Additionally, the law that governs privacy and protection of personal data must be justified based on Article 6 of the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. How do internal laws affect e-discovery? Internal laws affect e-discovery in the UK through the Practice Direction and the Civil Procedure Rule. This rule governs electronic disclosure and requires the parties involved discuss e-disclosure will be carried out prior to the first case management conference. International laws that may influence a forensic investigation in the country that your team is assigned. GDPR, information sharing, GDPR privacy laws, antitrust laws, liability, tort laws, attribution. What are the legal challenges of accessing and retrieving electronic evidence stored on foreign soil? Assuming cloud storage was used, what procedures were followed to access and retrieve digital evidence stored in the cloud? Cloud storage has steadily increased over the past decade, and the use of cloud computing presents a challenge to digital forensics practitioners. Data is fluid, making it easy to change, delete, or overwrite the information. The loss of relevant information creates an issue for the investigator to later verify the data in an investigation. Data stored in the cloud means that users' data and activity records are not stored on local devices. The handheld devices may not have evidence embedded in the device, and using forensic techniques will not yield results. Moreover, online cloud service accounts are password protected such that law enforcement must request data stored in the cloud from the cloud service provider. The issue is that these companies are based outside the UK, and the servers that store the data can be anywhere in the world outside of UK jurisdiction. In the investigation, the investigators will use mutual legal assistance treaties to ask local law enforcement to issue a warrant to the cloud provider to obtain the data. Unfortunately, this strategy can be extremely slow, delaying completion of their forensic analysis and readily capturing the cyber criminal. The Information Technology Act 2000 validates that digital signatures are a means of authentication and security of electronic documents. The digital signature is an electronic token that creates required lock-in between an entity and a data record. They validate and authenticate electronic documents. Validation certifies the contents of the document, while authentication certifies the sender of the document. This is very similar to an electronic version of a handwritten signature. This is implemented by using public key cryptography. The signatory uses their private key to create a digital signature for a document. It is used to ensure that the original content of the document is unchanged. There has been a rapid increase in the use of the digital signature framework for both public and private sector. Additional digital certificates include transport layer security, which is used to establish a secure connection to a website, and handshake when a message is sent to the server to establish a secure connection. Specific to the country that your team was assigned, how did the international laws and jurisdictions influence the processes and procedures followed during the forensic investigation? The laws and jurisdictions of the UK influence the processes and procedures we followed during our investigation by ensuring that we followed procedures related to the types of information we collected and how that information was stored and documented. What conflicts arose between ethics and international laws during the forensic investigations? How did these conflicts affect the investigations? How were the conflicts mitigated, resolved? During the investigation, it was necessary to review the laws of other countries to ensure that laws were being broken as we collected, documented, or shared evidence. Procedures were followed to create agreements with the parties involved to ensure that the investigation would be handled without evidence tampering or any other kind of deception that could hurt the case. What steps were taken to protect United States soil and citizens during the international investigation? Describe any risks to the country, business, or citizens from your investigations. Determine the severity of the incident. Determining the goals of the investigation and what players were involved. Determining that laws would be in effect based on jurisdiction. Preservation of evidence. Limited information sharing. Collection of privileged data. A possible risk would be collection of non-privileged data. Since subject access requests can be made under the GDPR, this gives the right to view information related to the investigation. References.